As of today, the UnPopulist is 3 years old. Like any 3-year-old, we're still quite young, but also growing. Despite being younger than a presidential term or an Olympic or World Cup cycle, we've done quite a lot. From conducting a nationwide polling project to convening a massive conference, pulling in some of the brightest minds in the world in Washington, D.C., the UnPopulist has staked its claim as the premier source for commentary about defending free societies, combating authoritarianism, and preserving liberal democratic institutions. These past 3 years have been jam-packed, so we wanted to give you a peek behind the curtain, a chance to see the journey of how the UnPopulist went from the seed of an idea to the newsletter you read, the social feeds you follow, and the channel that you're watching right now. It's a story of a political and intellectual realignment. Old lines in the sand erased, and a new one, uniting liberals of all persuasions against authoritarianism drawn in its place. This is the story of how the UnPopulist was born.
So before I founded the UnPopulist, I had been doing policy journalism for about 3 decades.
This is Shikha Dalmia, my boss, and the founder and editor-in-chief of the UnPopulist.
I was writing for the whole slew of publications. I'd worked on the editorial page of the Detroit News for 10 years, and I was with the Reason Foundation and Reason Magazine for 15 years, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the Daily Beast. And it was a happy life. Whatever policy issue on either side of the political divide came along, I would comment on that. I was center-right, but I was not a Republican, not a conservative, really libertarian by persuasion at that time. I thought, a pox on both your houses, kind of like a skepticism of both the left and the right. And then Trump came along and the whole political landscape changed.
My crystal ball's been shattered into atoms here.
Donald Trump wins the presidency. The business tycoon and TV personality capping his improbable political journey with an astounding upset victory.
Now arrives the hour of action. This American carnage stops right here, right now.
Unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime.
It just came out of nowhere.
It was a bombshell so many didn't see coming.
It was clear to me that Trump was not a normal politician. This was a much, much more fundamental threat to liberal institutions and liberal values than we had ever encountered. The minute Trump came on the scene, a whole movement of intellectuals arrived to give him intellectual heft.
Liberalism's crisis arises not in spite of liberalism, but because
liberalism creates a vacuum, which is going to be filled by something, and wokeness is what's filling it.
The liberal democracy that America was is what gave birth to woke neo-Marxism.
I don't want to violently overthrow the government. I want something far more revolutionary than that. I want to overthrow the party of progress and restore a party of order that is actually the dominant party in our politics. And this, for me, would be what constitutes regime change.
And they have mounted a critique of liberalism that we need to take seriously and we need to respond to.
It seemed like this upheaval exposed a lot of people on the political right, but really all over the spectrum, who at one point espoused and praised liberalism as crucial to American prosperity, as either swayed by Trump's promise of simple solutions or disingenuous in their previous support of liberal values.
People who I had thought were going to be my allies in this struggle against this new kind of threat, they were not my allies, and it became clear to me that not everybody was in the same fight.
You had a remarkable vulnerability. Conservatives and center-rightists fell victim to the lure of Trumpism. Trumpism was able to hijack an entire political movement. There were op-eds from center-rightists and conservatives saying, don't worry, if Trump loses, he will gracefully concede. There won't be a Trump coup.
But as many of us thought then, and know now, that was wrong.
This election was a fraud.
We're in Washington, D.C.
Capitol building dead in front of us. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
You can feel the rage, the madness.
Our country has had enough.
We bleed freedom.
We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about.
This will be their Waterloo. This will be their destruction.
We will stop the steal.
You look around and it's like, where was the movement that we thought was committed to constitutional constraints, was committed to the rule of law, that was committed to checks on power, that professed for so long to believe in those things?
But luckily, not everyone was so keen on this political realignment.
I also realized at that time that I wasn't the only one who was feeling sort of politically homeless. There were a whole bunch of us who were feeling exactly this way.
Many people in the classical liberal tradition have historically ignored the right or treated it with kid gloves in a way that they don't their leftist friends.
This new voice was needed that reoriented classical liberalism to take on this new threat of strongman politics, this illiberalism, and be voices of pushback and reform against our own side, and remind our fellow classical liberals what the struggle is about, what our true values and what our true commitments ought to be.
They need to be critiqued, and that critique needs to come from a place of first trying to understand them.
So it was this twin purpose of being sort of a voice of reform on our own side, as well as taking on these new intellectual schools of thought that had cropped up overnight, that I founded the UnPopulist.
So if you recall, about 3 years ago, there was some stuff going on. I can only imagine what kind of undertaking this must have been at any time, much less at the peak of a global crisis.
When I started the UnPopulist, it was basically just me, a one-woman job. But right from the start, I had this idea that it needs to be more than my personal newsletter. It needs to be a full-blown publication because I wanted it to be a home for similarly minded classical liberals. I needed to set up an architecture that's challenging. But what was very gratifying and encouraging and frankly nourishing was just how many very smart people who understand what the stakes of our current illiberal moment are and are wholly devoted to addressing it, wanted to be part of this project.
I first discovered the UnPopulist through people sending me articles. This would have been very shortly after it launched.
So I had read a few articles that have been published at the UnPopulist, and I thought they were really well done.
I had just moved across the world to a new country. I was trying to keep up with the roller coaster that was US politics.
I essentially cold called Shika. I said, hey, this is a really cool project. I'd like to be involved. I never subscribed to a lot of newsletters, but immediately recognized how important this project was.
They were taking authoritarianism's global reach seriously. So I immediately appreciated that.
I kept seeing the UnPopulist, the UnPopulist.net, Shika Dalmia of the UnPopulist, and really amongst people who I respected, who were sharing and looking at the political landscape in an insightful, careful, but not timid sort of way. And to work with the ultimate tweeter, Bernie, I mean, come on.
Bernie, who is just an amazing editor, who is so devoted to the mission. He's been amazing.
I had a chance to chat with Shika. She mentioned she was looking for an editor. And what really struck me was how aligned we were, even though we came from different backgrounds. But the overlap between our intellectual sensibilities was remarkable.
And at that point, I realized what I was doing was genuinely bigger than me. This was just part of like this bigger movement that now we were trying to shape.
Shika knows and gets tremendous contributors to the site. It is an extraordinary number of incredible people. Doing the UnPopulist podcast, I get to talk to a lot of incredibly interesting people that I probably would not have gotten to talk to otherwise.
Landry Yu branching into video journalism has brought a wholly new energy to the UnPopulist edifice. It has allowed us to now occupy many different platforms.
What just started as a Substack has grown into a true multimedia and publishing brand that is the UnPopulist.
It's actually kind of hard for me to even remember what it was like just 3 short years ago. So I am so grateful for everybody who has decided to join our little band of happy, warriors here. It's just been amazing.
And that's another thing that is really encouraging about the UnPopulist is the sort of big tent liberalism that it tries to cultivate.
I had for 3 years conceived that just as the national conservative movement had created an umbrella for post-liberal ideologies to congeal under, similarly we needed an umbrella to congeal various flavors of liberalism.
We've got people from the center-right, from the libertarian tradition. I tend to think of myself as much more progressive, but have worked in libertarian circles. But we all have respect for the grand liberal democratic institutions, even if we disagree about some policy issues.
If we are making the case for liberalism, that can't be a single case, and it can't be lockstep. This is exactly what it looks like, and any deviations have to be treated as heresy.
Each one of them comes from their own school of thought, but we are all sort of aligned in this mission of protecting liberal institutions and liberal values.
Ours is a moment where someone from the center right, someone from the center, someone from the center left, people from the farther left are able to come together and recognize liberal society at its foundational level is under attack by an approach to politics that would completely erode everything it fought for.
Liberalism is by its nature diverse and open and dynamic.
And so the whole ethos is one of acceptance and openness and welcome. It's not a big tent movement united around grievance or a common enemy, but in uplifting everyone, even the ones we disagree with, and trying to understand them.
So diversity is our strength. We both learn from it, and it allows us to strengthen our ideas and buffer them against those who see diversity as a threat.
We unite around not just one shared value or tradition, but in the idea that we celebrate a variety of them. And so long as we can respect one another's choices about those, we can make that work, even if it's messy sometimes.
Perversely, one of the services that Trumpism has done for liberalism is it's shaken it a bit and said, you can't take your point of view for granted. You can't assume that we'll always be a robustly liberal society. You have to defend liberalism.
The liberalism that the UnPopulist exists to defend and hopefully advance needs quality arguments to back it up.
It's the system that best supports multiculturalism, pluralism, and a society that has a bunch of different viewpoints, all angling for their particular perspectives. It's a system that best accommodates all of that.
I'm a long-term optimist about the prospects of liberalism because this is a philosophy and a way of ordering society that has yielded enormous benefits for humanity, right?
It's the system that best accounts for solving political conflict.
We have lived in a period of 250 years where economic prosperity has completely transformed entire continents, lifted billions out of poverty, lifted billions out of oppressive, tyrannical regimes, delivered vast gains in human rights.
Liberalism is something that needs continual renewal and a continual defense.
And so I think the real value and why I'm excited to be part of the UnPopulist and to continue to be part of the UnPopulist is just beating that drum for liberalism, is making the case over and over and over again, because it needs to be made over and over and over again, that these ideas and these values and these institutions matter. They matter far more than many people think they do, that they are worth defending, they're worth dedicating your life to defending. And the UnPopulist gives me a platform and a network and a set of colleagues to carry out that mission with.
All of this to say, it's been a crucial, challenging, but ultimately necessary 3 years of work at the UnPopulist. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate than by looking forward to another 3. And many more. Happy birthday.